Welcome to Plot Twist, the show where we unpack the unexpected turns that shape our careers, relationships, and ourselves. I'm your host, Tiana, leader, speaker, and corporate mom. And I'm sitting down with guests that prove that growth begins often at the twist of a story. Let's dive in. Now, sales enablement might sound like a fresh buzzword from the last few years, but this concept has been around for over a century. Long before CRMs, AI tools, and dashboards, we had early pioneers like Dale Carnegie in the 1900s teaching people how to communicate, influence, ask better questions, and actually understand human behavior. Fast forwarding to today, with advancements in technology, buyers can get answers from Google in 30 seconds. So if a sales team shows up with nothing more than the same information that people can search for on their phones, the value is lost. That's why sales enablement is no longer just training or closing the deal, it's deeper. It's strategy, it's alignment, it's messaging, it's equipping people to deliver real value. I am joined by a very special guest, Elizabeth Taylor, also known as Liz Taylor, better known though as the Corporate Bestie. She is helping professionals level up their soft skills so they can stand out and thrive. You got the corporate mom, the corporate bestie in the same room. If this isn't a family reunion for corporate content creators, I don't know what is. And Liz has a front row seat to how this is evolving. So, before we jump into your career story, I should say, Liz, tell listeners something people think that they know about you that always turns out to be wrong.
Okay. First of all, that's a great question. Second, I want to go back to my pre-first, which is thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to be here. I'm excited to talk about sales enablement. This is something that is in like second nature to me. And so I really relish at the thought of being able to share it with others. So really great question. And I thought about this and I'm very active on TikTok. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm incredibly social. I love being around people, but what people are surprised to know about me is that I'm actually also incredibly introverted. I recharge my batteries by being alone. Not even being with my husband, just like being alone in the quiet, reading a book. That's where I can really just get back to where I need to be so that I can be the engaging and passionate and enthusiastic person that I am outside of myself.
I'm with you, Liz. I'm an ambivert too. I can be extroverted here, and then when I'm battery is low, I get back into here.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There's a time and place for being social and then being very quiet, right?
Absolutely, absolutely. So the show is called Plot Twist. I have to ask my moniker question. If your life had a plot twist title, what would it be and why?
Okay, my plot twist title is Trust the Process. And it's because, I'm incredibly transparent and I'm a 39-year-old woman who left my corporate job 9 months ago. And if I have learned anything being in my late 30s and where I've been in my 20s and all of that is you have to trust the process. You have to know that you will land on your feet if you believe that you will land on your feet. You don't need to worry about how it's going to happen. You just need to know that it's going to. And I am certainly in the middle of a plot twist as we speak. And so I'm really leaning into lessons of the past to know that trust the process is that chapter title.
Absolutely. And let's talk about that career. So walk us through your early career in corporate. What roles helped to shape your approach in leadership and communication to prepare you for this plot twist?
Yeah, well, I feel I'm a little unique in that I was exposed to corporate America as early as 16 years old. My first job was working at a Starbucks. And so being in a corporate environment, even though it was retail, it's still incredibly corporate. And Starbucks was like unhinged leadership. And then you have corporate America that is like diplomatically unhinged, right?
Yes.
There's a lot of smoke and mirrors, but I was fortunate enough to, recognize there's there's a game here to be played, and if I play my cards right and I listen and I pay attention and I'm strategic in who I talk to, how I talk to them, if I'm intentional about the shifts, then I can use all of what I'm learning to my advantage. And so all of this to say, what this has taught me is that really amazing leaders are transparent, they're authentic, they know what to share, when to share it, and how to share it. They know how to read a room, they know how to respond to people. And so that's something that I have really thought about being in the corporate environment. And that's what really helps inspire me to do some of the work that I do today.
I do appreciate the fact that you leaned back to your job when you were 16, because a lot of times young people look at the jobs that they take on in high school or early college and don't see it as something that they can take away value from. They're like, "I'm just getting a check," and not
Yeah,
establishing those fundamental.
we're always learning something. Things are in our lives so that we are getting some kind of takeaway, even the bad or uncomfortable experiences. And so there's a lot that we could probably spend another podcast
We
episode talking
could.
about what I learned from Starbucks.
We're gonna mark that, things I
Yeah,
learned from
for our next
Starbucks,
time.
for sure. Yes. So, your videos that you put out on social media, you do a lot of soft skills, leadership, how to communicate, and they're excellent videos. I love the perspectives that you bring. When did you first discover a passion for effective messaging and helping leaders become stronger communicators?
When I was in corporate, in my last corporate role, I saw a lot of leaders be so eloquent in their messaging. Some were really good at it, so good that you didn't even know what they were saying. And you have like this corporate speak, and you're like, why are you talking in circles? And then some leaders were very direct to the point. They were engaging, but they were also personable. And I knew for me that I wanted to create and be a part of the process that created more leaders that spoke to people and were transparent and were authentic. And so in my career journey, when I think about the leaders who have made an impact, the ones who showed up as themselves and also understood the rules of engagement, but also understood how messaging and how clarity is so critical to leading teams, I knew that I wanted to bring some of those best practices more broadly. And I just want to do it in a way where it's like, let's keep it real. Let's keep it real. We don't need to have that smoke and mirrors. We can be very frank, but also very personable and empathetic at the same time.
Empathy is key because that brings about that authenticity. That's what makes people say, I trust
Yeah.
this person because they can be vulnerable about, oh, maybe I didn't get this quite right. So, was there a moment that made you realize, okay, I'm meant to build something on my own?
Yeah. So of my past corporate career, I spent 11 years there. 9 of those years I was in the learning and development strategy and programming for our sales organization, which we'll talk, I know, a little bit about sales enablement more in depth, but I've worked with some amazing vendors and I've seen them come in. One woman in particular, I do want to shout out. Her name is Samantha McKenna. She owns her own Sam Sales Consulting company. And we brought her in to do some sales training. And I saw the engagement and the enthusiasm and just authenticity that she was bringing to our sellers and how they were responding to it. And I was thinking about my own programs internally that I was building and deploying and facilitating in the way people were responding to that. And in the back of my mind, I was always looking at Sam going, I can do that. Like I can do that. Do I want to do that? I can do it, right? And then after a while, I'm personally I've noticed my journeys tend to take like this 11-year rotation. And so I get to like this 11-year cusp at my company, and I had some things going on personally. And, I thought to myself, why can't I do that now? What's holding me back? What if I'm going to be working, why not work for myself? Why not just apply my best self to myself and see what I can make of this? And so that was really kind of the inception of there might be more out there for me than the 9 to 5.
And that's a hard decision to make when you do have personal life and professional life. I think we're now getting into a point in our generation that we're focusing on work-life balance truly and managing and looking at both aspects.
Mhm.
With that in mind, leaving corporate to work for yourself can be scary. So what made you make that push to take that leap?
You know, I don't know if there was one thing in particular that made me go, "All right, I'm doing it." But culture and leadership and the environment that we work in, and then the things that go on in our personal life, after a while, it starts to drain you a little bit. And as you mature and get more confident in who you are and your expertise, you start thinking more clearly about the value that you bring and also your own values and what you want out of life. And life is way too precious to be unhappy. And I had a personal situation. My nephew was diagnosed with leukemia at 9, and he's going to be 11 in January, and he's like thriving and he's doing great. And we're very, like, so grateful and blessed that, out of all of the worst case scenarios, we had the best case scenario. But like that
Mhm.
still sits in the back of your mind of, you know, that is a real hard, situation. And the things that we do in work, it just, it starts to feel trivial. And so that's
Mhm.
where I go back to life is too precious to be unhappy. And one of my best leaders that I ever had working, she used to say, and this was well before Jack was diagnosed, she used to say, Liz, we do important work, we do valuable work, but we're not saving babies, we're not curing cancer. Take the day off, call it in early. If you need to move a timeline, you move a timeline. Like it's all going to be okay. And that's always stuck with me. And that certainly has helped me make the decisions that I have in the grand scheme of things.
I love leaders that have that mantra. I've had a few that had that same sentiment, and it just makes you walk into work with a different air.
Absolutely.
It makes you feel so supported, and it makes you feel refocused. What surprised you the most about building your own business after years of corporate life?
Well, I will say that it is a humbling experience to build a business. Like, I feel like a newbie again. Had all of this corporate experience, and I understand, the importance of having operations and legal and marketing and a sales funnel and strategy and all of that stuff that comes with working in a corporate environment. But also when you're doing it for yourself, you're like, "Oh my gosh, there isn't a team of people that are there to help me. It's all on me to do it." And it just gets real, right? You likely have a finite amount of dollars that you can invest. And so being incredibly picky and choosy about where do I invest? What is my return on investment going to be? And just taking that risk. I'm taking a lot of risks that I never really anticipated. But again, I think that's all the part of the entrepreneurial journey.
100%. So let's talk about your moniker, the Corporate Bestie. For people that don't know you before listening to this podcast, how did your
Right.
identity as the Corporate Bestie evolve, and what does that brand represent today?
So I picked up the name the Corporate Bestie because part of my role in corporate was overseeing the new hire onboarding experience for our sales organization. I was often the go-to person for them, and I had been at the company for so long, and I am incredibly social, and I do network with intention. So, people would come to me if they didn't know who to go to. I knew if I could help somebody or I can point them in the right direction, or if there's a good chance I just had the answer because I know because it's institutional knowledge. So I became everyone's go-to gal for what they needed in the business. And what I really loved about that is, someone said, "Oh, go to Liz. She's your bestie. She's going to be the person that can help you out." It just made me feel so good that people could rely on me, that they could trust me. And when I think about the corporate bestie and what that means today, I want my clients who I work with to understand and feel that they're getting a reliable, trustworthy relationship with me that also comes with the expertise that I bring.
And that they are. They are definitely getting that. This is a call out to the listeners. If you're not yet following Liz on social media, pause right now, go to LinkedIn, go to TikTok, go follow her, because if you do have a question, if there is something that's on your mind, she has a wealth of knowledge. All
Mhm.
right, so let's dive into sales enablement, which is the core of today's episode. A lot of people hear that phrase. They hear the phrase says sales enablement and they think it's just training, but it's so much more than that. How do you define sales enablement?
So I appreciate you calling out that people think that it's just training. Here's a science behind what it means to learn. And so I want to call out, thank you for recognizing that. I would describe sales enablement, and PS sometimes it's referred to as revenue enablement as well in certain organizations. But sales enablement is really four main components. It's what technology are we using to enable sellers to do their jobs? It's reporting and metrics. So, what dashboards and tools do we have available to us to gain clarity into their performance and pipeline health? It's training, right? So how are we equipping them with the sales skills to execute their jobs in front of their clients? And then it's rewards and incentives. How are we incentivizing them to exceed the quotas that they have? Because there's a really great chance that they all have incredibly lofty quotas. And so we need to make sure that we are recognizing behaviors that we want to continue to see and rewarding the people who are absolutely dominating their book of business. That is a very oversimplified way of saying that is what sales enablement ultimately, if you have a sales enablement team in your organization, their primary goal is to help make your sellers' jobs faster, easier, or more profitable. If you're not doing those things, you're not doing sales enablement very well.
What are some of the biggest myths or misunderstandings about sales enablement and what they do?
I think that it's just training. And what's hard is the seller may not perform, or they might not have the right product information, or they might not be using a tool correctly, or we see gaps in pipeline and forecasting and how seller A is performing compared to seller B. The answer is, well, they need more training. Well, that's
Mhm.
not always the answer. You need to identify what specifically is broken throughout that workflow so that you can properly address it with the right sales enablement levers that you have in place. Like I said, training is not always the answer, and what people typically think of training isn't always the best way to train.
I know you know I have an IT background, and same thing, not everything is a technology solution, but there are some things where technology can really help to improve that solution. And so I think that's what sales enablement is looking at, is the holistic approach on how to solution. So let's talk a little bit more about why sales enablement is so important for companies' growth, especially if we're talking about small and mid-sized businesses.
If you have a well-oiled sales enablement machine, you're going to be able to make data-informed decisions. What I notice, especially in SMBs and mid-market companies, is we experience a problem, we see a problem, we're able to take notes on how people are performing or what's broken in the system or where we are experiencing bottlenecks. Observation alone is not sufficient enough to say we know what it is that we're solving for. And it's very ironic because what a really great salesperson does is they are able to diagnose a problem before giving a prescription to it. And so we need to be doing the same in the
Mhm.
sales enablement function. When we have that, we're able to see the data that we have, pull on various threads and see where performance is correlated to what is going on in the business and what's going on from an enablement side of things, and determine what do we want to see more of and where do we need to have improvement and where do we need to be investing maybe more time, energy, dollars, resources.
That all makes sense. So when sales teams do struggle, what root causes do you see most often?
Most often, it is an accountability or coaching gap. So, sales leaders often don't know how to coach. They don't know when to let sellers fail. They don't know how to hold someone accountable versus micromanage. There's a gap there. Sometimes it's through no fault of the sales leaders themselves, right? Because what happens is high performing sales, high performing individual contributors who crush their quotas get promoted, and then the leadership team expects them to just scale their awesome seller behaviors. But the reality is there is a complete mindset shift that needs to happen between an individual contributor and now a sales leader. It's not just about my book of business and my strategy to win, but it's about how do I motivate and inspire others and give and enable them with the skill set they need so that they can win, so that they can be motivated and bring things over the finish line. So I think that that's probably the biggest gap that we see consistently across any size and scale of business.
It's that, to say it bluntly, that lack of self-awareness,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
like you said, or sometimes they just don't know. So
yeah.
for those that don't know, what are the signs that an organization actually needs sales enablement support? Like, how do they know that?
Yeah, so I get this question often, and my kind of smarty pants remark is, well, do you have a sales team? You need sales enablement then.
There you go. Done. Wrap it up. Podcast
Right?
over.
Do you have a sales team? You need something. But to be honestly, what I find common is larger enterprise organizations, they already have some sort of sales enablement function, whether it's, hyper focused in GTM, or maybe they do have sales specific trainers. They don't maybe have all four pieces of the sales enablement pie, but some do, some don't. But
Mhm.
especially for SMBs, for mid market, if they don't have a sales enablement team, they might, an indicator that they might need one is how they're actually getting revenue. So are they solely referral based? Do they need to start expanding how they're getting and growing their book of business? In which case, one of the first investments they might make is an outreach and whatever technology you need to enable your sellers to effectively outreach and find new clients, new revenue. Because usually in business, your existing revenue is only going to take you so far. You need to end up bringing in some new revenue too.
With that in mind, you work with several tools and platforms that support small and medium businesses that don't have the opportunity to have a full sales enablement team. What are some of your go-to solutions, and why do you recommend those?
Yeah. So I do have partnerships with some amazing companies that allow me to just enable my customers even more and allows me to offer a one-stop shop experience for some of their enablement needs. One that I would love to call out is called Amplify Solutions. It is a CRM. And what I love about Amplify Solutions, it is the one-stop shop CRM. A lot of businesses will invest in Salesforce or HubSpot because those are just that's what they know and that's what's out there. But when those CRMs get in the door, it's still missing critical functionality, specifically around the reporting and metrics piece. I cannot overemphasize the importance of making data informed decisions. And so what I love about Amplify is that your dashboards are already right in there. You don't need to pull an analog report to then send over to somebody else to put in a pivot table in Excel. It is all right there. It is all one dashboard. It is all one price. It is not all of these features and add-ons. So I would like to shout that one out specifically because that one has been the most impressive by far.
That is great, especially for small and medium businesses. They don't need any surprise costs or extra things that require a whole different department that they probably don't even have to support. And that's why you're the corporate bestie, because you're giving exactly what they need versus this prescription of these are the steps that you gotta have.
Absolutely. And that's, again, one of the things that I actually train to. So I have a prospects to profits seller series. It's a six-part series that I train with my clients. And one of the things that we talk about is we need to make sure that we are not just coming in with our bag of tricks and selling our bag. The key to successful selling is don't sell. You want to earn the right to a meeting. You want to be consultative. You want to be that trusted advisor. And when you can do that, when you can be the person that's like, you know what? I'm not sure how I feel about this, but I'm going to call Liz and see what her take is. That's when you know that you've really won over your client, and that's what we strive for. And it's being able to say, I'm not trying to throw something at you. I want to figure out what is just right for you. So it's so ironic that I'm doing that in sales enablement, and that's what the sales enablement function does within a sales organization.
Yeah, you're just practicing what you preach.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah.
So, holistically, I know I'm asking this question holistically. What does an effective sales enablement program look like when it's done right?
You should see revenue. and you should see data, and you should see enablement in the flow of work. And what I mean by that is going back to something that I said earlier, we need to help sellers do their job faster, easier, or make more money. When you are achieving one of those things, that's you're hitting your enablement goals. And so in the flow of work is the information is accessible to me. In the flow of work means that I can do something and not spend an insane amount of brain power that I don't have to give and mental load that I don't have to give on something to execute my day-to-day tasks. And so I really think that's what a successful implementation of enablement looks like. Again, grossly oversimplifying it, but
Mhm.
if we're going on feeling and what we're observing, that's the best way I would describe it.
Can you share a success story, a moment when improving messaging or training transformed the team's results?
One of the things that I am most proud of is my ability to deliver incredibly engaging workshops for seller skill development. And one of the things that I've always hung my hat on is new hire onboarding training. So there's a lot of data out there that suggests that organizations that have really successful enablement programming, specifically new hire onboarding, we see accelerated time to revenue, and we see overall engagement improve, and we see higher retention. And the new hire onboarding programs that I have created and have implemented and facilitated, those sellers have gone on to be sales excellence winners. They've gone on to receive countless promotions. The programs that I've brought, people have said to me, this is the best new hire onboarding experience I have ever participated in. And I have been in the game for 20 plus years. So I think that that's a testament to what a really intentional, thoughtful, well crafted program can do for a sales organization.
I would agree with you. When that
Yeah.
employee, independent contributor, leader first steps onto your organization, whether it's in person or virtually, the way that they are received, the way that they're supported to start off, definitely sets the tone.
I really believe, and you'll see this in the TikToks that I post, but at the end of the day, a lot of the things that I stand for is creating an experience for employees. And creating an experience can be something as big as an elaborate onboarding program, or it
Mhm.
can be handwriting a note to an employee and saying, I appreciate you and I'm grateful for you, and really thinking about what that does to somebody. Experiences are limitless when it comes to how we can create them and the feelings that we can generate. And if we can get back to that and put people first, we'll start seeing more engagement. We'll start seeing more positive emotion, more stronger mindsets, better results. I mean, the data tells us that anyway.
Mhm. And those handwritten notes, it's been a while, few and far between. I have, like, probably, like, a small stack, I can't even call it a stack, maybe this much, of handwritten notes, but they mean so much, so I keep them.
You know what? I have one, two, three, four handwritten notes on my desk right now and back. And they're just notes that came out of the blue of I see you, I appreciate you. And those notes give me motivation that I need to just keep going and keep doing what I know I can do.
I mean, you make it all sound so simple, but I know that we're talking holistically. Why do organizations often wait too long to invest in sales enablement? And what's the cost of that delay when they do?
I think there's a lot of reasons why there's a delay in investment. I think number one, a lot of times in organizations, everything's a priority. And when everything is urgent, when everything's a priority, then nothing is. And ultimately, the business is going to decide how to invest based on the strategic goals and initiatives that the business has. So if you can't clearly articulate the value that sales enablement is going to bring to the overall business strategy, that's a really good indicator that you're probably not going to get that invested in. I think that there's an opportunity for us to be better advocates within the business for how to build up what that investment looks like and having a strategy for it and a plan. So it's not just we're going to bring on this tool and we're going to hire this person, and between, this call recording tool and this sales trainer, we're going to elevate our sales enablement team and we're going to drive revenue. Like, that's not enough. Again, data is incredibly powerful. So if we can start small and do those things and correlate, because we brought in a call recording tool, we're able to increase coaching effectiveness by X percent, or we were able to see an increase in lead conversion rates by X percent, or we correlated that our total contract value over the course of 6 months has increased by 20%, right? Like, I'm totally making these numbers up, but it's like, if we can start bringing a narrative to the
Hmm.
impact that sales enablement has on the business and how that ties to the broader goals, I think we'll see a little bit more traction there.
Absolutely, because unfortunately, at the end of the day, it's the results that
It
matter.
is. It is, because as much as we sit here and talk about how important it is to be empathetic leaders and have clarity and be very thoughtful in our messaging, C-suite and executive leadership, they're responding to numbers, performance, data. And so, again, going back to a comment I made earlier, learning to play the game, you have to be able to anticipate the needs of the people that you're trying to influence. And that's like sales 101.
So, for organizations that are listening right now, what's the very first step to improving their sales enablement function?
I would first start an audit. Just audit it. What do you have in place, and get a sense for what is the climate of sales enablement in this organization, and figure out, of the four pieces of the pie that I talked about earlier, rewards, training, technology, metrics, where are you doing things really well? Where are you doing things kind of okay? And where do things not exist? And then that will give you a little bit of insight into how to enhance the sales enablement function for your team. Also, look at your sales numbers, look at your revenue goals. Are they hitting the mark or are they not? What is going on within the sales environment? How long is your sales process? What are your lead conversion rates? All of that data is also going to inform your audit.
Absolutely. And Liz, I know there are people that are listening to this episode and saying, I don't have a pie, or I got all the pieces except for one. Somebody took a slither out and I need help. How can people contact you to book a consultation, training, or learn about the tools that you've recommended?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me on TikTok. On TikTok, I talk a lot about just manager development overall. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you go to LinkedIn and type like Elizabeth Taylor, the Corporate Bestie, I pop up right away. Also, you can email me. My email is liz@thecorporatebestie.com. I do 30-minute consultations. I am all about sharing thought leadership. I have someone who emailed me today and they were like, I think we need to do training on discovery calls, and I'm just not sure what to do, how to do it. I literally sent over her everything that I have on how to train on effective discovery calls. She's not a client. I just want to help. So I really want to encourage people to reach out and just let's have a conversation. I would love to help you solve some of your enablement problems.
Love that, Liz. And your TikTok handle, your link to LinkedIn, as well as your email will be in the show notes. So for those of you that are listening, whenever you get to a safe space, you can pull over, click on those links in the description, and reach out to Liz. Liz, before we wrap things up, what's one message that you want listeners, especially sales managers and leaders, to take away from today's conversation?
It's don't overcomplicate it, right? Don't overcomplicate it. It's not that hard. It can feel hard. It doesn't have to be. And with the right people and tools in place, it can just, our day to day can get a lot easier. And so just don't overthink it, don't overcomplicate it. Come find me.
Thanks for tuning into Plot Twist. If this story made you pause, reflect, or smile, please share it with someone who's in the middle of their own plot twist. You can catch more episodes on Spotify, YouTube, and connect with me on my socials. Until next time, keep writing your own story.